This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Princess of Silmar ran like a champion this afternoon. And Strong Mandate is geared down for the last 16th of a mile. Oh, this is a very promising 2-year-old. Mike Smith says go with Royal Delta, and she is going indeed. Will take charges surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call. Alpha wins the Woodward.
Broadcasting live from the backstretch at Saratoga, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow. Racing Across America is brought to you by Pannell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track. And Thoroughfan, giving the fan a voice. Find them at thoroughfan.com.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Friday morning. Another beautiful day up here at Saratoga. Sun is shining. Temperatures are cool but comfortable. It's that time of year, I guess, late August. But as I say, comfortable and plenty of sunshine. So if you're planning to come up to the track today, absolutely keep it on the calendar. It's a beautiful day up here. We're going to head it to a piece from Jeff Carl in just a moment. Before we do, let me just give you the lineup for today. Right after the Carl piece, we'll be joined by Dave Litman from the Daily Racing Forum. We'll get some ideas for this afternoon. Also look at tomorrow's very, very nice stakes action. Phil Schoenthal will join us a little bit later. He is the trainer of Misbehavior. She is in the Prioress tomorrow. We'll get a little update on her and meet Phil. And then towards the end of the show, another trainer, well known to me and most of my viewers, as I am a big fan of Jonathan Shepard, Hall of Fame trainer Jonathan Shepard, who this year racked up another win at Saratoga, making it the 46th straight summer he's had a winner at Saratoga. Won a jump race yesterday. We'll talk about all of that with Jonathan towards the end of the program. Right now, however, as noted, going to have our daily backstretch buzz video piece from Jeff Carl. He met up with Oscar Barrera III, and they had a little bit of a conversation. So take it away, Jeff.
Good morning, Seth. I'm over here at the harness track with a young trainer with a very familiar name, Oscar Barrera III. Why don't you tell us about who your father and your grandfather are?
My father's a trainer up at Finger Lakes, and my grandfather was a very, very familiar face in the NYRA circuit.
Of course, Oscar Barrera Sr. and his brother was?
Laz Barrera, last Triple Crown winner in 1978.
So quite the strong lineage you have. You're a young horseman. You're trying to make your way here in the NYRA circuit. You had 2 horses in today's races. Your first-time starter, Cutie Bird, had to be scratched. What was the reason?
The reason was she was not feeling right this morning, had a little bit of a cough and a little bit of mucus, so I decided just to take the time with her and wait till Belmont.
That's the right thing to do, but you do have another horse in today, Pegasus Red. Any thoughts about that horse in the second race?
He has to have a nice clean break and be able to be clear in the lead to be able to win.
Well, you know, we certainly wish you the best of luck, Oscar Barrera III. It's very good to see the familiar pink and black colors back on the NYRA circuit. Oscar, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck down the road.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Oscar, for joining me this morning. And Seth, I'm going to send it back to you in Racing Across America.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, it is Friday morning. We're wrapping up a week here on Racing Across America. But all meet long, we have been joined on Friday mornings by Dave Litman of the Daily Racing Forum. This morning, no exception. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. It's the final push in the home stretch. 45 races in the next 4 days. Real test of stamina for horses and horse players.
Absolutely. And we're going to touch a little bit on one of the big stories of closing weekend. And it has become a big story over the past couple of days. The trainers race has really tightened up.
It really, you know, after the Alabama when Stop Charging Maria won, Pletcher had 22 winners. Just had a double-digit lead on Chad Brown. It just looked like that was going to be your cold exacta for the 4th straight year. He's had 1 winner since then, Maiden Claimer early on Wednesday's card. Meanwhile, Chad Brown's been winning races right and left. P.G. Johnson, the With Anticipation, he's closed it within 1, 23-22. They go head-to-head a bunch of times over the weekend. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to take a look at some of the opportunities they will have this afternoon. Let's kick things off looking at today's 4th race, a starter allowance at the $25,000 level. They will go 1.25 miles here. I like that. Marty Panza, we had him on with us on Loose on the Lead a couple Sundays ago, and he talked about extending, having longer races and putting them in the program. I like them. I think they're a lot of fun and a good addition here. And in this fourth today, I put the number 7 on top. That is Village Warrior. It is the Todd Pletcher runner in here. I did it with some trepidation off of that front running win last time with a very solid buyer figure. It was over a muddy sealed track. It was in only a field of 4, and I went back and forth because the number just looks like an aberration to me. So I had a tough time pulling the trigger, but then I looked and I just thought this horse might be able to sneak away again. So I had that one on top. I think the one entry from Gary Contessa, I think both halves look interesting. And Cineris, the number 2 horse, another horse with a little bit of early speed that might be able to stalk and pounce potentially if the top pick, the Pletcher horse, doesn't get it done. So for me, it was 7-1-2.
Yeah, I went back and forth between Cineris and Village Warrior. Ultimately put Cineris on top. They have the same identical 92 buyer top last time. Cineris hasn't been out since June 12th, but he wins fresh. He's won at nice prices here each of the last couple of years for Nick Zito. The 1.25 miles is a question for him, stretching out from a mile, but really it is for everybody. And the whole key with Village Warrior is if he gets the lead. He's 3 for 3 when he's got the lead at the pace call on good, fast, and muddy tracks. Otherwise, he's 0 for 7. So if he's clear on the lead, going down the backstretch, he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it should be an interesting 1.25 miles. I've said it before. It's kind of counterintuitive, but the longer they go, the more potent speed seems to be. So it will be, as we go down the backstretch, we'll get a good idea of how things may shape up when they turn for home. All right, let's take a look out at the 9th race today. And again, Pletcher has a contender in here. It's a state-bred maiden special event. They're going to go 6 furlongs. I put Alexandri on top, the Todd Pletcher runner. I think there's a little bit of breeding punch in here. The workout tab is okay. Certainly, they paid over $200,000 for this horse last year at Keeneland. So, I mean, it's just the connections and the price and the workouts are okay. Didn't jump off the page at me necessarily. Underneath, I thought My Supernova was a little bit interesting by Super Saver. This one, a bullet workout back on August 11th, was kind of attractive. And in the 3rd spot, if this one gets in, I just do want to mention Freudy Ann, the 12 horse. On the AE list, too deep on the AE list. But if that one gets in, I think there's the nice combination of nature and nurture with Freud on top, and Eddie Keneally can have him ready first time out. Nice workout in the middle of August down at Churchill Downs. So the ship up here for this spot was kind of interesting. But we'll have to get in from the AE list. Again, that's the number 12. So for me, it was 5, 8, and 12.
Yeah, evidently we have plenty of New York-bred 2-year-old maiden fillies because we got 16 here. Great minds think alike. I have Alexandria on top. The dam has produced Park Avenue Bowl, a multiple graded stakes winner who won the Grade 2 Futurity as a 2-year-old. Also, Anderson Fowler was a nice little sprinter. Dream On is interesting to me for Carlos Martin. This is a half to Agave Kiss, the multiple sprint stakes winner who won first out of 2 in the fall of her 2-year-old season for Rudy Rodriguez. On the rail, Captain Munnings is a half to 6 winners, including Zippy Shannon, a very useful sprinter who won the Schenectady. She blew out sharply from the gate the other day. And My Supernova, like you said, George Weaver. This filly doesn't get Lasix, but Weaver did have a first out winner the other day that also did not have the Lasix.
And that's interesting about the sibling to Agave Kiss. I have to admit I didn't see that because I didn't go any deeper than Cosmonaut on top, which doesn't attract me.
Yeah.
So I didn't then look at the dams. But that makes that horse a little bit interesting. As you say, Castellano attracted to ride as well. So Dream On is maybe one I'll have to take a second look at as we get closer to post time. All right, this afternoon's feature, again, the contenders for the trainers race are taking shots in here today. Chad Brown has an absolute contender in the risk adverse this afternoon. $100,000. These are 3-year-old fillies. They'll go a mile on the turf, and I did put the Chad Brown runner on top. Granny Mix Kitten. It's Ken and Sarah Ramsey. It's Chad Brown. It's a horse that over the last few races, the 3 races so far in 2014, the buyer figure's moving in the right direction, including a win last time. So that one was on top for me. Second spot, I went out to the number 10, Nishirora. Second time in the United States for Rick Matee and Team Valor Ladies, the ladies part of their partnership. I thought the first start in the United States, it was off a long layup. Wasn't anything to write home about, but it seemed to me maybe one to build off of. And again, off the long layoff, I was kind of willing to forgive it. I'm going back to the European races, which I thought were pretty good. And you might get a little bit of a price on that last start. And then in the third spot, Miss Frost was interesting. Same scenario as the top pick with the improving buyer figures and the win last time. That followed another win. So Miss Frost is on a little bit of a win streak right now for Tom Albatrani. So again, risk averse today. I had it 5, 10, and 2.
Yeah, I have, it's hard to get past these top 3. I went with Nish Aurora. On the basis of the win first time out in France against Testa Rossi, who eventually came to this country and was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf last year, in between winning the Miss Grillo and the Florida Oaks. So she definitely classes up. And in the Wild Applause at Belmont, it was off a year layoff. She got not much pace to run in there at all, just kind of went evenly for 5th. She can improve off there. But obviously, Granny Max Kitten likes it here. I think Chad feels this might be a little short for her. She probably prefers a mile and a 16th, but she does love it up here, which is why he's running her back. And between her and Miss Frost, they got virtually identical figures last time. If you're looking at sheets, they probably got great sheet numbers because they were very wide, especially Miss Frost, who was carried out to the parking lot on the first turn. Amazing performance to still win that, but she does pick up weight here.
Yeah, again, an interesting little race in here. Actually, on my sheet, I said I was 5, 10, and 2. I got 3 horses listed after that as well. So I think it's kind of a competitive, fun race this afternoon, the feature. The 11th race this afternoon, again, the trainer contenders will be in here. Maiden special weight event for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and up. It's on the turf at 5.5. I have it 6, 1, and 4. I took Zendaya on top for Christophe Clement, and it's just a horse I've kind of been paying attention to right through the first 3 career starts. Been competitive in all of them. Compared to some of these, we'll have to get back to that 76 fired at the end of, or early in December. Down at Gulfstream. It has been off since February, so it's a question mark of will we get back to the best number off of the layoff. But we have a nice workout coming into this. It is Christophe Clement. So I think Zendaya, as I say, it's a horse maybe I'm a little bit married to. Keep that in mind. But I'm not going to let it get away today. At 3 to 1, I think will probably hold up, and that seems to be a decent price. Linda Rice with the one-horse Gal Royale from the rail, a little bit interesting with the improving buyer figures, and kind of interesting. Off the claim, comes back into Maiden Special Weight Company, so I like the confident move. And the cutback, not as potent on turf as it is on dirt, but I still found it interesting. And I'll take a little shot underneath with the John Sheriff's Firster Court Appeal, 12 to 1 on the morning line. But I love Candy Ride's first time out of the box, so I had it 6, 1, and 4.
Yeah, Zendaya, I have one more chance. She hasn't gotten it done twice at 4 to 5, but the first time she lost at that price was off a similar layoff at Gulfstream against Tisgale, who's now an allowance winner. The last time she got beat by her stablemate, Henry Song. She's a couple of sharp rollouts. She really has no more excuses. She ran well fresh here on this course last summer. But there are some well-bred horses in here, like Court Appeal, the Candy Ride, and the dam has produced Monty Bobbin, who won the Adirondack and the Spinaway up here. Also Here the Ghost, who won last year's Grade 2 San Felipe. Corite, half to 3 6-figure earners for Dave Donk, including Independent George, who won $250,000 on the grass. And Chad Browner's Wavell Avenue is coming up from Belmont, Canadian bred by Gene Melnick, and looks like she's seriously meant here off a sharp gate work last Saturday. For Chad.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with Corite or Wavell Avenue. I mean, in these kind of races, I love to look for the firsters and maybe get something clever at a price. And with Chad Brown and with the scenario in the trainers race, leaving that one out of the mix is something I may kick myself with. But again, it's a nice finale to the day where I think there will be a little bit of value to be had. There's no question about it. All right, let's shift our attention now and go over and take a look at some of the really nice stakes action. Tomorrow up here at Saratoga, and tomorrow we kick things off stakes-wise. Probably, I said yesterday, 5th race on the card, and it kicks off the stakes, and it's got the 2-time horse of the year in here, Wise Dan. And I'm going to go back and look at the last time we saw Wise Dan up here. That was 2013 in the 4-star Dave. We're going to watch him win that race last year with some traffic trouble. He will get it done nicely as the number 1 horse. Running second is the very talented King Creesa. And interesting, running third in this race last year, Lee, who is entered as a main track only, but has turned into a nice handicap horse on the dirt this year. So I found that kind of intriguing. But again, we see Wise Dan get it done up here last season. Obviously, coming back from the surgery, there's some big question marks, and if you're going to take a stand against, this may be the day to do it. But I said a couple of times yesterday, Dave, I didn't see really anywhere else to go. So I put Wise Dan on top. I thought Boisterous could be a little bit interesting in the second spot, along with Bio Pro. They're an entry. I thought both of those had a little bit of potential on their best efforts. And again, if Wise Dan maybe goes in the wrong direction, in the third spot, I took a look at 5 Iron as maybe being one to steal it. But I think with Syed in the race also, that's going to be a little bit of a dicey situation. And maybe a long shot from Barclay Tag's Sky Blazer attracted a little bit of attention off that Bowling Green last time. But again, for me, if you're going to take a shot, as I say, today's probably the day to do it, but I think he could regress a little bit and still have it over this field.
Yeah, I like being a wise guy as much as everybody else, but, this horse overcomes adversity. I know it's been less than 4 months since he was on the operating table for colic surgery, but, it turned out to be a best-case scenario type deal, and this horse, you just can't underestimate his will to win. I mean, last year in the Firecracker and a driving rainstorm, they almost put him over the hedge. He still won. The 4-star day, we saw, he was carrying 129 pounds in there on a turf course that was, good, maybe closer to Yearling. He went 134, just missed the course record. I think the big thing is going to be whether Johnny V can get him to relax. He was a little eager in the 2 races that he won in the spring. I think drawing in the middle of the pack helps. He had the rail in the Turf Classic. He was in post 3 at Keeneland in the Maker's Mark. He's going to be fresh and frisky and raring to go, and it's just going to be a question of, letting him not run off and do too much too early. Boisterous, he was within a length and a quarter of Wise Dan in the Turf Classic. He's a beaten favorite in the Sword Dancer twice up here. Probably didn't want to go quite that far. This distance is better for him. I'd like him a little more if there was some give in the ground. He's a horse that kind of likes that.
Yeah, and it's worth reiterating the weight you mentioned. The weight last year, Wise Dan was carrying 129, and King Creaser was 117. Yeah. And so, as compared to when I was a kid, I don't pay that much attention to weight as I used to, but you have to pay attention to spreads like that. And again, there's some spreads in here today. He comes back with 127 and is giving weight, but boy, you look at what he did last year with that 12-pound spread against King Creaser, who's a pretty nice horse himself. As you say, he gets it done and overcomes adversity. All right, let's take a look out at the what do I have up next? Yeah, is it the Prioress next? Yeah, the Prioress is next on the card. So, and I don't have any video of that, but we'll tee that up because chronologically that is next up. And coming up, as I say, a little bit later on the show, Phil Schoenthal, the trainer of Misbehavior. I put Misbehavior on top off of the test. I think she might appreciate the cutback. She's 3 for 3 at this 6th furlong trip. And again, the Prioress, 6 furlongs for 3-year-old fillies. Grade 2, $300,000. Sweet Whiskey right underneath. A couple of guests yesterday thought the trip that Sweet Whiskey had in the test may propel her to a better effort today. And I thought Princess Violet was kind of interesting. Ran second untappable in the Mother Goose. Well beaten, but it was untappable. It was a 2-turn try. She might be better sprinting. So Prince Violet, very lightly raced for Mike Hushion, I thought was a little bit interesting. For me, it was 6, 5, and 8.
Yeah, with Princess Violet, I wouldn't let the fact that she's a New York bred scary. Mike Hushion, had a pretty nice one last week. Artemis Agratero just walloped them in the Ballerina. I went back and forth between Misbehavior and Sweet Whiskey, the obvious ones. They were a length apart in the Matron last fall, half a length apart in the test earlier this month, 4 weeks ago. Sweet Whiskey was in a little bit tight along the rail. I think drawing a mid-pack probably helps her getting away from post 2 here. She runs back to the Acorn. She's going to be tough. Misbehavior fires every time. She's 3 for 3 at 6 furlongs. But if they don't fire their absolute best races, there's a couple in here that have a chance to rebound, including Prince Violet. Tea Time, who ran at 94, 2 starts back, and she actually beat Misbehavior in the Sharp Cat at Belmont last fall. And even Southern Honey, who was 4-1 in the test and just kind of backed up after pressing the pace between horses, but 2 starts back, she ran at 99.
Yeah, Tea Time is one I didn't use in my Southern Honey. I have down below my top 3. Tea Time I didn't use, but with trepidation because threw in a little bit of a dud last time, comes back with Lasix added today, and so if that propels this one back to that nice race down at Delaware, 2 back Tea Time, absolutely could be a little bit interesting. So fun edition of the Prioress. Let's kick out another couple of races on the Saturday card to the Forego. Always a fun race. on the Saratoga Stakes schedule. This is for sprinters going 7 furlongs, $500,000. It is a Grade 1 event. We are going to pull up some video here and watch the Vanderbilt #1 Palace. Will get it done in here. Falling Sky, the #2 horse, runs third. They're both back on Saturday. I went out to Clearly Now. We showed some video of Clearly Now's Belmont Sprint Championship win yesterday. Obviously, he comes anywhere near that one. This is the one to beat. Brian Lynch is having a pretty good meet up here with limited starters. I think, we have a layoff since July 5th, but I think given that big buyer figure, that's going to be beneficial. So I think they have to get through Clearly Now. Palace, I put right underneath that one. And then Big Business for David Jacobson, I thought might be a little bit interesting in here as well. So for me, it was 8, 6, and 2.
Yeah, I put Clearly Now on top. This was a design freshening after that monstrous effort in the Belmont Sprint. One of the odd things about that race was the pace was a little slow, and they really came home fast. But 7 furlongs, absolutely his best distance. Belmont's his favorite track. It's going to be first time over this course. But his main obstacle, Palace Malice, I think is better at 6 furlongs. And Linda Rice is on the fence, and she's saying she may pull him out and just wait for the Vosburg. She's kind of afraid of a bounce off that 107 in the Vanderbilt, where he's really great from the rail to use himself and get some early position and then still be able to run down Happy My Way, who was loose on the lead. And from what I understand from my man Dave Grenning, Falling Sky got loose yesterday on the backstretch.
Yeah, that's what he said on the show
couple
yesterday.
Scrapes, so I think he's coming out. And it looks like Weekend Hideaway is going to be your pace setter, and he's coming off a win over Big Business in the Morrissey. There was nothing phony about that race. He ran hard every step of the way and just ran them off their feet.
Yeah, again, always a fun race on the card. Pletcher with one in here, Capo Bastoni, and again, they're going to come with Todd and Chad are going to come loaded this weekend, so I think you have to pay attention to everything they send out. Unfortunately, Todd does not have Palace Malice in the Woodward. They're going to hold off, I guess, and wait for the Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the game plan. So we were kind of looking forward to maybe seeing if Palace Malice would rebound off of that Whitney effort, but we will see some Whitney runners in here. The Woodward tomorrow Grade 1 event, $600,000. They will go the same distance, 9 furlongs, as the Whitney, so it's potentially kind of a replay. Yesterday we showed the Whitney on the show, and we saw Marino go wire to wire. It's My Lucky Day run a good second behind Marino. They're both back in here. But a lot of folks are wondering, with It's My Lucky Day in the rail position, is he going to have to go out and engage Marino and maybe set things up? And if he does, we're going to take a look back at the Suburban back in early July and watch Zevo get it done in here. Zevo will be the #3 horse, winning over #11 Marino. Zevo has been off since that Suburban, but again, a lot of folks are questioning if the pace scenario might set up for Zevo. I took a little shot with Last Gunfighter because I took a shot with Last Gunfighter in the Whitney, and I just can't sit on the sidelines if the pace scenario sets up for him Saturday. I don't want to, miss on the Whitney and miss on the Woodward as well. So I'm rolling the dice a little bit, but I'm using Last Gunfighter. I thought Zevo was interesting in the second spot, and then in the third spot, I did go with Marino. If he does get out there and lope along like Wade in the Whitney, he may be tough to reel in again. So for me, it was 8, 6, and 4.
Yeah, I remember last year, after Marino set the pace in the Jim Dandy, everybody just kind of backed off him in the Travers, and he came within a stride or two of actually winning that. Nobody went with him in the Whitney. It doesn't really look like anybody really wants to tangle with him early here, except for It's My Lucky Day. Paco Lopez is a pretty aggressive rider. They're putting blinkers on this horse. The horse has the rail. I assume this horse is coming out and is going to at least make Marino out-sprint him into the first turn, and then maybe just try to tuck and go right, just stalk him right from the outside. But I don't think you're going to see It's My Lucky Day sitting fourth in mid-pack the way he was in the Whitney. I think he's going to take it to Marino a little earlier. If he does, that sets things up for Zevo. I mean, he's a stretch runner. But he's got the ability to get within striking range of the pre-stretch call. He's not a plotter. He gained 10 lengths. He was down a dozen lengths early in the Suburban. By the pre-stretch call, he was down 2.5. So he doesn't leave himself with too much to do. And he's just forgotten how to lose. He hasn't lost since last fall. He wins close decisions. He seems to run well fresh. He has won up here. He's vastly improved over that form now. And, it's silly to leave him out in any kind of exotics.
Yeah, and Chad Brown, so Chad live there, and I'm the other Chad with Last Gunfighter, and we saw what happened last week with the other Jimmy Jerkins topping the Jimmy Exacta, so I'm hoping for the Chad Zacta in here with Last Gunfighter over Zevo, but I certainly think, I have Zevo right underneath, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the pace plays out. We'll have a good idea by the first turn how things are going to potentially play for Marino.
Yeah, I kind of like the switch to Joe Bravo back, the last Gunfighter. It's going to put him under the radar a little bit as Castellano gets off to ride Norumbega, but Bravo's been aboard for some good efforts with this horse.
I actually thought Norumbega was a little bit interesting, too. I didn't use him in my mix, but he scares me because Castellano pops over to Norumbega, so I found that intriguing as well. Dave, as always, we appreciated the visit this morning, as we did all month long. Dave Lippman, you can find his work in the hard copy of the Daily Racing Forum or on drf.com throughout the racing season. Dave, we wish you good luck through the remainder of the meet and continuing down on to Belmont as you cover New York racing. Thanks for joining us, and again, good luck going forward.
Thanks. See you 4 weeks from now in the Jockey Club.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Dave Lippman from the Daily Racing Forum will take our next break. As promised, trainer of Misbehavior, Phil Schoenthal, right after this.
Face it, most horse racing websites are just too much clutter, too much to navigate through. Next time, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Our newly designed website is easier than ever to use, with all the information the professional horse player needs. CapitalOTB.com.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Sovereign Stable.
Partnerships.
Ownership.
Winning.
Sovereign Stable.
The anticipation.
The excitement.
The thrill.
Top level racing.
Sovereign Stable.
Join us in the morning on the backstretch of Saratoga Racecourse to experience the magic of thoroughbred ownership. Call 866-329-2WIN to meet trainers, jockeys, and watch sovereign horses on the track.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America, live from the Saratoga backstretch on this Friday morning. As promised before the break, happy to be joined now by Phil Schoenthal, trainer of Misbehavior in the Prioress tomorrow. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Seth.
Happy to have you on board. I've said before, you're a guy I have followed for a number of years now, but give I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but give us a little bit of your background and how you got into the racing game.
I was knee-high to a grasshopper. My parents were on vacation in the Kentucky Dam Lake Village, put me on a pony ride. A couple of weeks later, I was sitting in front of the TV on a Saturday and watched the Derby and wanted to be a jockey. And my parents don't have anything to do with horses, but I just knew what I wanted to do and focused on that the rest of my life.
And give us a little of your background on how you got into the game and progressed to this point.
I'm fortunate I had some people in my life that took me under their wing early on, had horses, had race horses. John and Candy Wiseman, they're actually flying in today to cheer me on tomorrow. But they kind of took me under their wing, took me to the track, got me introduced to the game a little bit. From there, basically, I went off to college. I was night watching mares at Woodland Farm. They bred More Than Ready. From there, I worked for Todd Pletcher for a short stint. And I ended up in the Air Force, spent 4 years in the service, and got out of the service and got back to the racetrack with Mark Schumann, who's a friend I met in New York, and went from there.
Very good. And you had the time in the Air Force, and that's what I was going to say. I followed you for a while now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that back in the early days of the internet, when it started to expand and made it possible for this kind of thing, you were also one of the participants on that Final Turn forum.
I was a participant in a lot of those internet boards. Met a lot of great people. In fact, a lot of the guys from those internet boards have flown in for this weekend to cheer me on too.
Because I remember the days where you were in the service, but saying, I want to get in the game, and then there you are. And so I've kind of picked up on you down in the Maryland circuit, and it's fun to see you up here now with the second in the test, nice grade 1, now trying for the grade 2 tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, it's been a thrill of a lifetime. You spend your whole life dreaming about being on the big stage at Saratoga with a horse that actually can compete, and here we are, and it's just kind of surreal, really.
Let's talk about Misbehavior a little bit. I'm going to pull up the stretch run from the test earlier in the meet, and we're going to watch the second place finish behind the very, very talented Sweet Reason. But boy, I thought this was a big effort from Misbehavior. The betting public let her get away at about 15-1, but she runs very nicely. Misbehavior will be the 12 horse. Sweet Reason number 7 wins. Little Alex number 8 finishes 3rd. But again, a very, very nice performance in a grade 1 event for your filly. How do you think she's coming into this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon?
Knock on wood, she came out of the test probably better than she went in. I mean, just absolutely tearing the barn down. I thought it was going to be a gut-wrenching effort for her, just watching the way she ran, and felt like I was going to have to really back off of her and kind of freshen her up a little bit and baby her along into this race. And after 3 days of walking, she told me it was time to get back to business, and she's just been a machine ever since. So I'm thrilled.
And you went back to Laurel with her?
Went back to Laurel, shipped up again yesterday, and she's more relaxed here this time. She's been here once, walking around. She's just calm and cool, and trained this morning at 9 o'clock, and I'm just thrilled. I'm just on cloud 9. It couldn't be going any better right now.
Very good. You got the friends and whatnot flying in. Very good. We wish you a lot of luck, obviously, tomorrow with Misbehavior. As Dave said, as he walked off, you're carrying a lot of weight. But well, Dave Lippman and I have her on top, so I think it should be fun. The change in distance, you think she's going to appreciate? Obviously, her record says probably her better distance.
Yeah, no, we felt the Prior S was our goal all year long. 6 furlongs is probably her wheelhouse. I mean, thrilled she got the extra furlong last time out, and gives us hope that going forward next year we can compete in some of those bigger races of grade 1s, sprinting. So hopefully
not bad to get the leading rider on board also.
Yeah, it always helps, He's obviously an Eclipse Award-winning rider, and he came into the paddock the last time, and of course with the scratches of Red Velvet and Princess Violet, I sat there all day long handicapping the race, figuring let's just go to the lead. And he came into the paddock, and I said, Javier, I think we should just go to the lead. And he looked at me and he said, well, Phil, I think maybe we should take back and save a little for the end. And I said, you know what? I eat more donuts than I do ride racehorses. You ride more horses than you eat donuts. So I'll just leave the riding to you, and I'll just watch and cheer on.
Very good.
It worked out good.
All right. Well, again, good luck this afternoon. Phil, I went out to your website, kingdombloodstock.com. I pulled a couple of pictures up, and the guys can pull them up. And I just want you to talk a little bit. I think this is the big horse and the little girl. Is that your little girl?
That's my little girl. That was last year, and she loves this horse. It's been her favorite horse since day one. She came in the barn.
Misbehavior.
This is Misbehavior. Yeah. And Misbehavior loves her. I mean, she absolutely adores her, looks for her, hollers for her when she walks into the barn. I put my daughter on her back and give her pony rides in Misbehavior. They've kind of got a cute little bond, so it's neat.
Excellent. How many kids do you have?
We've got 2.5. We got 2.
Oh, there you go.
My wife is due in the middle of September. She'll be up. She's flying up today. I think she's 36 weeks pregnant now. So.
And is she in the game too? Does she help you out, or?
She helps me out because she's the backbone of my life. She doesn't do a lot in the barn, but she absolutely runs the household and runs the business, so it's good.
That's important. And we just quickly saw another picture I pulled off your website. Explain this. I'm assuming that's Egypt.
That is Egypt. We were in the Air Force and spent some time in Cairo, and of course we took the tourist trap over to the pyramids and rode around the pyramids. So that was neat.
So that's a tourist attraction. You can ride horseback around the pyramids?
Camels or horseback, yeah. I mean, it's really funny because you see all these pictures of the pyramids in the background in the sand desert, but it's on 3 sides. It's lined by nothing but tourist trap mania, and so you can only from one view get a picture of the pyramids with desert in the background.
And that's where they take all the pictures.
That's where they take all the pictures from. It was it's not what you expect at all.
Very good. Talk a little bit about. Also, I went to your website, and again, it's called KingdomBloodstock.com, which indicates bloodstock. You do more than train. Talk a little bit about what else you do in the game.
Well, we do a lot of work at the horse sales, mainly for our clients, but do a lot of work looking at yearlings, buying yearlings, older horses, do a lot of breeding analysis and selecting mares, stallions for mares. I'm a horseman, you know, and feel like you don't want to limit yourself or pinhole yourself into just one thing, but do a lot of things that involve the business.
Very good. And speaking of, you know, playing around and whatnot, you're a guy who plays in the claiming game, and I wanted to pick up one of your good claims from a couple of years ago. You picked up Miss Fleetfoot, $7,500, took her out of the Scott Lake Barn on February 10th of 2011. On April 16th, you won a stakes race with her. Pretty good.
Yeah, no, it was a thrill. I kind of shot myself in the foot. I had a client that wanted to claim some horses, and I emailed him the horse and said, how about this horse? And he kind of hummed and hawed and said, no, not really. And so I took the horse with my own money, and after I claimed, he says, well, you know, maybe I'm like, all right, no problem, I'll give you half, you know. So it cost me a lot of money, but, you know, that's the cost of doing business, you know. But no, she was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and those kind of things are feathers in your cap and help to build on business, as is something like this this weekend, certainly. And have you been getting some response after the test?
You know, I've been getting a little bit of response. A lot of people in the Mid-Atlantic that breed to Jumpstart and have Jumpstart. I'm now the Jumpstart guy, you know, which is great. I love Jumpstart. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, that this filly kind of can parlay into some better kind of horses for me. That, you know, once you prove that you can handle this kind of horse, hopefully they start feeding you more of them. But we'll see, Lord willing.
And again, went to the website last night, and I was kind of searching around, and I was interested to see. We pulled up a little video because you had some videos of it. You do something a little different with feed. It's a barley fodder, and you have a project involved with that. Talk a little bit about it.
You know, it's something that I basically I think I'm the only guy in the racehorse business doing it that I'm aware of. But if you take barley seed, and this is barley mixed with sunflower seeds, in 7 days it will sprout from seed to feed. And it's 20% protein, it's 80% digestible. The horses love it. They absolutely gobble it up. But it's live enzymes. It's, you know, if you and I could go to Whole Foods and drink wheatgrass shots, we'd be healthier and we'd feel better.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with horses. You know, we feed them this dried, dead, processed horse feed that we think is really smart, but the reality of it is God made them to eat forage and eat sprouts. And so I've been supplementing the horse feed with that, and feel like I'm seeing some really great results, doing some work with the veterinarians to monitor blood levels, weights, and that sort of thing. And I feel like really, you know, it's 80% water, but they stay so much better hydrated. And I feel like with Misbehavior, she eats this daily. She comes out of these races and she's tearing the barn down, and I think it basically negates the effects of Lasix. I think
puts water back into.
I think that my horses are better hydrated than everybody else on the racetrack, and you know, Lord willing, if they ever have a horse with Triple Crown, I think that I can knock through those 3 and 5 weeks and not feel the adverse effects of the Lasix and the quick turnarounds. So we'll see.
Interesting. So this is a project you're doing yourself. You're growing it yourself and feeding that to your...
So that video is, I've got a shed next to my barn, and it's basically a grow operation. I've got the grow lights and the hydroponic watering system and timers and the whole bit, and people walk by, and I get a lot of jokes that I'm growing different stuff in there. But no, that's what it is, and it's something that it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work.
How'd you fall into this idea?
I actually, Misbehavior's owner actually mentioned to me one day, have you ever seen this fodder thing? And I'd never heard of it. And so I started doing some research, reading a lot about it. You really can't find anything negative about it. And you know, usually something, there's all kinds of pros and cons. You can't really find anybody that has anything con to say about it, besides it's hard to do because you have to have a perfectly controlled environment for it. So it's been about a 2-year project, been a big learning curve, and I feel like we're finally on the cusp of good production and good growth. So it's been a lot of fun.
Interesting. And again, I'll remind people your website is called KingdomBloodstock.com, and you have some videos there that kind of explain the project a little bit. Phil, before we let you go, I know you're a guy that's based down in Maryland, and you've been there for a while, so I want to get your thoughts on just the state of racing in Maryland right now. It seems like things were in flux for a while and have kind of rebounded a little bit. The Colonial Downs situation, though, I think put a damper on things, but it seems like Maryland, as I say, is on the rebound.
Maryland is awesome right now, and everybody's enthused, excited about it. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, I'd go to the horse sales, I'd come to New York, and you'd be kind of embarrassed to say, oh, I'm based in Maryland. But now you walk around and you wear your Maryland Million hat and you're proud of it, and people want to send horses to Maryland now. They're going to be pulling more mares. The breeding program's excellent. it's going to be the place to be in the Mid-Atlantic for a long time, and we're excited to be there.
Yeah, it did get some support, and as I say, rebounded. What's the reaction to the Colonial Downs situation all this summer? That had to put a kind of a damper on things.
It put a little damper on things. I think it really more so highlights the struggles between racetrack management and the horsemen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's everywhere, not just Colonial. And that's kind of the first place where it's been kind of a national headline standoff, line in the sand thing. But you know, it's a difficult situation. You know, we just hope for the best going forward, and hope that everybody learns from it too.
Yeah, and it may turn out for the best for Maryland Racing too, because now they're looking at the summer and maybe jiggering up their schedule a little bit. So again, in the end, it may turn out okay. But it's certainly this summer, it's for the folks that, you know, and for folks who don't know, that was kind of one of the cogs in the Maryland area circuit in the summertime. Go over to Colonial Downs, and they didn't have a meet this summer. So put kind of our buddy Dave Rodman, we have him on by phone all year long. He's kind of, what am I going to do this summer? And he wound up calling some races, I guess, out in Northern California.
It worked out well, I think, for a lot of Maryland horsemen. I train a lot of Maryland breds, obviously, but now that Maryland is so good, we turned out most of our Maryland breds for the summer because we didn't want to waste conditions at Colonial or Penn National or Charleston. I want those conditions in Maryland, and so we gave them all a break over the summer. Going to have them all cranked up here for the Laurel Fall meet.
So it may wind up being a win-win situation for Pimlico and Laurel, having more horses.
More horses, and the truth is, there's a shortage of horses. The foal crops have been down. You know, there's probably too much racing, and so there's going to be some contraction. And you know, Colonial kind of helped that a little bit, but by doing what they did.
That's interesting. So the fall at the Maryland tracks may be a bonus because of that. All right, Phil, again, we appreciate the visit. We wish you a lot of luck with misbehavior tomorrow in the Prioress. We'll be paying attention. It sounds like you will have a big rooting section if you win. Big crew in the winner's circle.
It's going to be a scene if she happens to get home. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
very good. And again, going back to the old, we got to be going back 10 or 15 years to those old racing forum days. As I say, when you were in the service and hoping to get into the game, it's a lot of fun to see you up here. Now, knocking heads for graded stakes at Saratoga. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Phil Schoenthal. All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, Jonathan Shepard, Hall of Fame trainer, right after this.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Summer at Saratoga, and there's no better place to watch all the racing action than right here on OTB TV. Each morning, the Handicappers Report brings you selections and analysis from our professional handicappers. Then stick around as the biggest names in racing join us live from the backstretch. The top trainers, jockeys, and racing personalities all share their unique insights and observations. For more than 20 years, there's been just one place to turn for unparalleled coverage of the Saratoga Racing Meet, Capital OTB and OTB TV.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night school in the buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Good morning. we're laughing because they have an outhouse right near the set, and they chose Friday morning to redo the water in the outhouse or whatever. So thank God it's not smell-o-vision out there in television land, but you're just watching, and it's a beautiful day up here at Saratoga. Friday morning live from the Saratoga backstretch, as promised before the break. Very happy to be joined by Jonathan Shepard, Hall of Fame trainer. I'm a huge fan, as folks who watch the show regularly know. So again, happy to have Jonathan Shepard on board. Good morning.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
And I'm a big fan, as folks know. I think a lot of folks like me, they have their go-to guy. You're my go-to guy on the racetrack. And you know, over the years, it seems like there have been some sneaky good ones during the meet. We're getting less and less as the word gets out, but still one or two, and we'll talk about those in a couple of moments. But before we get into some of the recent races and whatnot, just want to go back and talk a little bit about your background. You're from England, and I'm reading some bio material. I know you were interested in getting involved in the game as really a child. Did you have a horse racing family? Is that what drove you into it?
Yes, my father was a racing official. He worked for the Jockey Club, and I used to kind of tag along when he went to the races, you know, as a kid. And both my parents had been involved actively in riding and fox hunting and whatnot, but that was prior to World War II, and when that happened, all the guys naturally served in the army or whatever, and they sort of got rid of the horses and never really got back into it. But as children, we grew up with ponies and did fox hunting and local little horse shows and whatnot, and my idol was always one of the top jockeys, either whether it be flat racing or steeplechasing, and I guess I had a childhood dream of being, you know, kind of a Lester Piggott or something. When I realized that wasn't quite practical, I turned my sights more towards steeplechasing and rode a little bit just as an amateur over there, and I came here at an early age. I was barely 21 because I ultimately wanted to train, and I wasn't allowed to in England. With my father, they figured conflict of interest.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's assigning weights to horses that I have, the races I have a horse in, for example. So I thought, well, we'll take a look at things over here. Came over and looked around for a year or so, and went back. Probably planning to stay back, really, but couldn't get back kind of into my old job in an office, having had a taste of the, you know, full-time racetrack and so on here. So I came back and have been here ever since.
And you mentioned, and that was in your bio material also, that you were a steeplechase jockey for a while. Were you good?
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't ask. I did just well enough, I think, to sort of get my name out there and, you know, meet some people, and I did show a bit of early promise and never perhaps quite followed through on it. Probably wasn't quite tough enough. You know, I enjoyed it, and I thought I was a fairly good rider from sort of a horseman's standpoint. But as far as, you know, getting the last ounce out of a horse, I thought if he'd done his best, maybe I wasn't going to push him quite as much.
I'm always interested. There are some trainers out there on the flat side as well who have been jockeys and then moved on to the training side. I'm always interested. Does that give you a special insight into the training
side?
Well, I
think
it
does, yes. Yes, I think so. As a matter of fact, I'm rather amazed at some people that are successful trainers that some have never even sat on a horse in their lives. I'm not sure of Shug McGahey has. He's a Hall of Fame trainer, you know. So my hat's off to them. To me, it does give you a bit of an insight. It certainly helps, I think, when you're talking to your exercise riders in the morning and work riders and your jockeys in the afternoon, and you've done it yourself. You know, sometimes I see these jockeys, you know, very successful jockeys, and, you know, a trainer, I'm not going to mention names, but sometimes, you know, some guy that looks like if he would ever have ridden it would have been on an elephant, standing, you know, telling this kid what to do, and never sat on a horse in his life probably, and maybe weighs 250 pounds. And the little jockey's standing there listening intently, but, you know, who knows. But it all seems to work in the end, I guess, different ways of skinning a cat.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I'm always interested because I have to believe it gives you an interesting insight and being able to relate with the jockeys in a more unique and...
And when I started, I used to exercise my own horses a lot, you know, and only when I got to be maybe in my early 60s, about 10 years ago, that I didn't really gallop anymore, and I think that helped quite a bit too.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Speaking of training, you have a really unique situation of training with your place in Pennsylvania, Ashwell Training. And I just want you to talk a little bit about that because it is very unique, and you're in a situation down there in Pennsylvania. And before we talk about training there, I'm just wondering, you're in a spot where it seems like you can branch out Presque Isle, New York, Delaware. Give us an idea of how far you are from, let's say, Presque Isle, Saratoga, Delaware.
Yeah, geographically, it's, you know, we're in the center of a whole big range of tracks. We're about 50 miles southwest of Philadelphia, sort of between Philadelphia and Lancaster, and just sort of on the edge of the nice open farmland and whatnot, the end of what some people call the main line. So it's still open fox hunting horse country, and I have about 300 acres that I either own or rent, and quite a nice little setup with various different barns and schooling fences and turf gallops and a training track and lots of different turnout paddocks available. And it does give me, you know, a huge edge, I think, over a lot of people who can't offer a horse a change of scenery because they don't have the facility to do it. And I can rotate back between the tracks. I keep horses. I've got 15 horses at Presque Isle right now. I've got 20 horses at Delaware Park. I've got 12 up here. And I keep 5 stores at Fair Hill, which is only a very, you know, well-known training center, as I'm sure you know, which is half an hour down the road for me, and I can kind of rotate horses back and forth there a little bit. That's a great facility with a torpedo track, which I love, and a dirt track and fields you can ride in. So, but unlike the people at Fair Hill, I sort of have my own little private Fair Hill. It's not quite as sophisticated, but it means that I can do what I want when I want, and it's I worked fairly hard to save my money to get that place, and practically everything I've made in racing I put back into it. So, you know, and maybe it's a little foolish, some people might think, but it's worked for me, and I am planning to
Yeah, and talk a little bit about the philosophy, because clearly it's very different than training on the racetrack. And from reading various articles about your training down there, there isn't, you do have a training track, but a lot of the training is just up and down hills and not no markers or anything. So talk a little bit about the philosophy.
Well, that's true. A funny story, years ago when we had Stormcat, he was having one of his last works before the Breeders' Cup or the Young America or some Grade 1 stake, and they called my assistant. I was away. She answered. They called the barn phone, and she answered, and they said, "How did he go?" She said, "Great." They said, "How far and how fast?" She said, "I have no idea." We don't have a pole, we don't have a stopwatch. We just knew he worked in company with some other horses, and he blew by them and finished way in front, and it was a good work, but visually. No, it is a slightly different way, but with my English background, I guess I'm kind of brought up that way a little bit. And I think it's very nice for horses to have an opportunity to rotate, you know, between the track and the farm and vice versa. So it's not all just farm training. We don't just train out in the fields. We do train, you know, they all have a certain times at the track at different times. And of course the farm's great for the jumpers. But I think one of the reasons why I'm able to have success with older horses is because you do get a little break from time to time. You're just grinding every day after day, pounding on a hard dirt track. It's tough. It's not anybody's fault, but that's just the way the game is here.
And how do you decide how the rotation goes? Well, what's the decision-making factor in looking at a horse and going, oh, time to go to the farm?
I just sort of watching the horses. I think, you know, they start to get a little bit jammy, you know, moving a little bit short or stiff, or if they seem to be a little sour, don't want to go onto the track or wheeling at the gap or whatever. You know, maybe it's time for a change. And some of the nervous fillies and whatnot, they just seem to be more relaxed, eat better, stay happier, and they do very well in that environment. One thing which I don't think I mentioned is we have turnout paddocks and pastures, which every single horse we have gets turned out every single day, either anywhere from a little round pen to maybe a 30-acre field in a group of 5 or 6 horses. So it's, you know, they're grazing, they're free, and they're loose, and they're happy.
Yeah, very good. Let's talk some specifics here. I want to go back to August 3rd, and we're going to watch Cat's Claw win the Weah. I unfortunately went with the other shepherd. I used Angel Terrace in here, but on my pick ticket, I did have Cat's Claw. I didn't want it to get away. As I said, it's hard to get a sneaky price with the shepherd horse now, but this one went off at 13-1. Number 13, as we watch the replay here, will win Cat's Claw. And I bring this one up because Cat's Claw is entered this weekend, back Sunday in the Glens Falls. How's she coming into it?
She's coming into it great. I'm very happy. I did send her back in the same way we've been talking to my farm between races, and she came back up here in time to have a final workout on the Oklahoma turf course. She worked very nicely, not a particularly fast time, but the style she did it was good, just what we wanted. She came from behind and finished in front, drawing off, galloped out strongly. It is a big step up. It's a graded stake. It's a pretty full field. It's some pretty nice horses. But I think she deserves a chance. She's won 3 in a row now, and She's won a listed stake. Now we've got to take a shot at a graded one.
Very good. Also wanted to go back to yesterday and watch, or was this 2 days ago? No, it was yesterday. The Brilliant Match win in the Mrs. Jeffords. Brilliant Match will be the number 5 horse. And I wanted to bring this up because Brilliant Match is a jumper, obviously, winning this steeplechase stakes yesterday, but has kind of gone back and forth between the jumps and the flat. And I know you do that occasionally with horses, and some of the other jump trainers do as well. Is there some set strategy in moving jumps to flat, or do you just look at it as kind of an expanded condition book, whereas, oh, he'll fit in this jump race, oh, he'll go over and fit in this flat race?
Basically the latter, I would say, yes. You know, basically what we're trying to do is have a horse have a productive career and win races and make money, and, you know, you see an opportunity, whether it's here or there, take advantage of it. There isn't very much steeplechasing after the spring hunt meets are over before we come to Saratoga. She did not run all spring, and I thought I did want to run her over jumps here, because I've always had quite a high opinion of her, and she broke her maiden in a very facile fashion down in South Carolina last fall. But now she's going to have to run in a state because they only have 2 races for fillies and mares up here, and they're both stakes races. She's going to have to run against the best. She needs to be properly prepared and fit. I knew she knew how to jump, but she's had lots of schooling and fitness. She's a Pennsylvania bred. We keep a little string at Presque Isle. I thought maybe she might be good enough to win a maiden race out there. Luckily enough, she did, and I think that tuned her up well. We brought her in here, popped her over a few fences, and ran in the first one, and she was third, but a little bit, still showing a little bit of greenness. It was only her third start over jumps. And then with the 3 weeks, you know, and I think a little bit of this additional seasoning helped her and stood her in good stead, and she really ran a wonderful race yesterday. She had to run hard, and the jumping was a test for her, but she did everything cleanly and well, and she got a great ride, and, you know, we're very happy with the win.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that for a second, too. You talked about maybe needed some seasoning. Certainly on the flat side, I see that a lot. You'll see a horse, first 2 or 3 starts, just seems to kind of be figuring it out, and then all of a sudden there'll come a start where you can kind of see the light bulb go on.
Exactly.
Is it the same as horses go over the jump?
Very much similar, yes. And actually the horse that won the previous day, not to be bragging, but both homebreds, which is kind of makes it extra fun. But he was sort of a big baby and taking a while to figure things out. And I think that was his second race up here, and it was a significant improvement from his first. He just seemed more sort of focused and willing, and he knew what it was all about. You know, it's like people. Some people pick things up very quickly, and others take a bit more time.
Talking about horses to pick things up quickly, I have one more video to look at, and we're going to go back to 1985, the Young America. We're going to watch Stormcat. Folks certainly tie you in with steeplechase races or longer grass races, but you've had some very precocious runners as well. You've covered the gamut, and Stormcat certainly a nice 2-year-old for you going back to 1985. As they come down the stretch, Stormcat will be on the outside. On the inside, Danzig Connection, who folks may remember was part of that long string of Belmont winners for Woody Stevens. Also in this race, finishing 5th, was Groovy. Really nice performance here from Stormcat, who is a nice precocious runner. Talk a little bit about when you get a precocious runner like this. And again, we talked about waiting for the light bulb to turn on, but some horses you just have to realize early on, oh, I got something special here.
Yeah, he was definitely in that category. He actually, very early on, he wasn't particularly impressive. He wasn't very big. Relatively short neck. Some of my riders are more the longer leg jumping rider types. They didn't like to get on him because he was a little feisty and he used to like to put his head between his knees and buck. But actually my wife who turned out to be my wife, was my girlfriend at the time, was working for me, Kathy, and she ended up getting on him quite a bit, and she had ridden flat races and it's smaller and it's easier for her, and she was also relatively fearless. I would say by the time he was in Camden, South Carolina, where we keep horses in the winter of his yearling coming 2-year-old year, by the time he left there in about April, we'd begun to see that he was clearly much more precocious than the rest of the group he was training with, and we had something pretty nice. And he certainly went on to prove it.
Yeah, it went on to prove it, absolutely. In the breeding shed, did you have a little piece, some breeding shares?
Mr. Young was kind enough to give me a breeding right, which was very helpful to me, sort of getting my farm going and having this little band of broodmares that I've got now. And always be grateful for that, and he was a very generous man, and we really appreciated it.
I also want you to talk a little bit about, because in one of the stories I read, one of your longtime partners, owners, George Strawbridge and Augustine Stables, one of the stories I read said you really started your steeplechase career coming up to Saratoga and realizing that the steeplechase runners over here might be a little bit different than over in England. So maybe you could go over to England and steal a few that would do well over here, and Strawbridge jumped in right at the beginning.
That's absolutely quite true, yes. I would like to think that was my idea, but it was actually a friend of mine from England who I'd known over there. We used to share an apartment with several other young guys all trying to get started in what we call the city, which is sort of like Wall Street. And he was a good friend, and he rode a few amateur races and was interested in racing. A very smart guy. And he called me and asked if he could come and spend a couple of nights in Saratoga. And I was already actually assistant trainer for somebody else, but I was up here for the meet. And he came and stayed, and I explained that I wanted to get into training, really. I thought I sort of gone as far as I could as a jumping rider, and it was about time to get going, but I didn't really have much prospects as far as owners. And he said, well, maybe if we got the horses first and sell them only to people that will leave them with you to train. And he gave me a financial backing, and I went over there and we picked out 5 or 6 horses that were exactly as you said, horses that weren't a little bit too small and a little bit more the speedier types that the jumping people didn't really want, but the flat people have to clear out because they all just have a fixed stables of their own yards with maybe, say, 70 horses, and they've got 32-year-olds coming out. They've got to get 30 older horses out, and the ones that aren't quite shaping up, they may be perfectly nice horses, but not, top class. And we picked up 5 or 6 horses, very inexpensive. The George Strawbridge ended up buying 2 of them. One of them did very well. The other one actually didn't, but we kind of managed to
50-50 is pretty good.
And that was basically how I got going. And those horses, they all won races, and some of he's the owner that's still with me. Phyllis Wyeth was one, believe it or not, who weren't union rags. Unfortunately, I didn't get to train him, but she's still a good friend, and we joke about it a little bit. But she was one of those people that bought one of those first horses. And a couple of years later, my friend Bill Pape was we've been in partnership a lot, and he's a very good friend, and we've had horses almost as long as Strawbridge. And it all worked out well. But, like everything in life, there's a lot of luck, too.
Yeah, well, I think it's been validated. It's more talent than luck. But just got a minute left, but I want to touch on one last thing that, as I say, validates your talent. 46 straight years you've had a winner at Saratoga, and it's not a record that they hand out a trophy for. It's not that. It's similar to, I alluded to it before, the streak Woody Stevens had in the Belmont. It's not that kind of thing that is recognized in that kind of way, but anybody who's a racing fan knows it is an absolutely incredible record. 46 straight years you've had a winner up here. You have to have a real sense of pride.
Well, yes, I do, and it is something. It's not something you set out to try to do. I mean, and I didn't even know about it until maybe 3 or 4 years ago when some in the media picked it up that it was 42 years or whatever at that time. But it is sort of amazing. I guess it just shows that I'm persistent and been around a long time. But apparently we missed 1 year. I won 1 year, then I missed a year, and then I started a sequence. So I've actually had a winner here 47 years, but not only 46 consecutively. I believe that's right. And at some point, I'll be curious to look to see the breakdown between jump wins and flat wins too.
Or the different kinds altogether.
Exactly.
Sprint races, grass races, yes. Because I'm sure they separate out. You've had them all.
But now people are aware of this sequence. It puts a bit of added pressure on you when you come up. You're going to keep the run going, and well, we'll see. You never know.
But you got off the duck fairly early this year.
We did. We were lucky, thank God. Yeah.
All right. We absolutely appreciate the visit, and again, that validates your talent, and that's one of the reasons, as I say, you're my man, because a horse like Cat's Claw, you can still sneak in a price a little bit, and I like to see that during the summer. And Jonathan Shepard, Hall of Fame trainer, we really appreciate the visit this morning and wish you good luck with the remainder of the meet.
Appreciate it. Hope we can keep it going.
All right, Jonathan Shepard. All right, that's going to bring us to the end of this Friday edition of Racing Across America. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. That means we're not back until Monday morning, but there will be a big weekend of stakes action. It looks like the weather's going to hold up, so enjoy the races. Don't forget, here on the network, 9
You need a lift anywhere?
No, I'm good. I got my
10 a.m. It is Down the Stretch with Mark Casano, and on Saturday, on Sunday, Loose on the Lead with Steve Vick and myself. So enjoy the races over the next 2 days. We'll be back in here with more Racing Across America on Monday. Let's all cash a few tickets, and we'll see you next time.
Racing Across America is brought to you by Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track. And Thoroughfan, giving the fan a voice. Find them at thoroughfan.com.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.